Hi, this is the Drupal usability meeting for April 2nd, 2019. And we were about to look at a few things, but only a couple of us showed up. So we'll, for now, first look at the upgrade status Drupal 8 module that Zoltan and I have been working on. And then as more people join, hopefully, we'll look at other things. So I will share my screen, or at least my browser window for this. So we agreed with Zoltan that hopefully I have a version that's not going to break. So I'm happy to show the Composer installation thing, but basically to get this on your site, it needs Composer because we have a bunch of third-party dependencies that we need on your site. So it's not going to be as simple as downloading the module from Drupal.org, unfortunately. So this is the upgrade status module. And when you enable that module, it's going to give you a new reports page. So under reports, you now have an upgrade status item here, which says review current status of known Drupal 9 incompatibilities on the site. And what we worked on so far is to use the same tool that's behind Drupal check and behind the Drupal.org deprecation static testing analysis tool, PHP Stan, to check your modules. So what you get at the start is two lists, a list of your custom modules and a list of your contributed modules and themes. And we try to focus you on your custom modules, but your contributed modules also get scanned. And by default, you get a list of all the projects that have been identified. What was tricky here is the contributed modules and themes are things that Drupal core can group into projects. So these are projects. They may have multiple sub-modules under them, but they are projects. But Drupal core does not do project grouping for contributed modules and themes. So there was some custom code to group a set of custom modules and themes into projects. So if you have a directory and then have subdirectories and multiple modules there, then this tool will group them under one project. So it will appear like you have your custom projects, which is not a thing that Drupal knows otherwise on the UI, but it's a thing that's useful for grouping the results. So this is what appears by default. The original design called for, I will paste the original design here. So it called for grouping these in 3 groups for modules that had issues in them, modules that had no issues, and modules that have not yet been scanned. So like this. But like this. But we decided that if we are to implement this progress bar on the page that refreshes the page with the results, then it's going to jump data around these 3 groups. So a module from not yet scanned would jump over to either the red group or the green group. And if you rescan something and now it found issues, then it will jump over from the green group to the red group or vice versa. So it will jump around. And if you're looking at the results while the scanning is happening, you try to click on something and then it jumps away under you, it's going to be a bad idea. So we went to Jennifer's great suggestion to just list them. And then as the results appear, then the visual representation of them will show what's up with them. So it's going to be fine. So basically, we'll list everything here, and both groups are open. And then when you start your full scan, then it will open this progress bar here. And then as the results come in, then the table will fill itself in as it goes. So this is the speed that my computer is capable of parsing these projects. So upgrade status, the module that we wrote is Drupal compatible. It's great. Yeah, and then it's now scanning these ones. So as the results come in, then you will see that Chaos Tools has 5 errors, and then Path Auto is scan next, etc. So it takes some time to scan these projects, but eventually you get to a result. So the way Zoltan implemented this is there's a queue behind this, a Drupal queue, which means that that we are saving the unscanned items as a to-do list. If somebody navigates away from the page, the list is still active. So when they come back and reload the page, the progress bar will continue running, and they will get the results. So if they navigate away, they don't lose the batch process. It's not a batch process in the Drupal sense, but it's a queue. We made this progress bar to appear on the page is similar visually to a batch project, but it's actually a queue running in the background that is being run with each Ajax load in the background. So this is the result we've got. The implementation of the data live updates is not yet complete, which is why you are not getting any operations here, and the summary of the projects is still as it was at the start. But if we reload this page, then you get what's actually going to happen. The reason we have not yet updated we're not yet implementing the operations is because this requires some care in terms of attaching Ajax behaviors properly, etc. So may need some more work. But when you get the results, then you have a summary here of one project has no known errors and 68 total errors found in these projects. If there are no known errors here, or if there are errors found here, then it's going to be a summary appearing here. So once again, this is kind of trying to replace the summary information that was in the headers of these tables. It's not as visual, obviously, as the headers were, but making them visual one by one would look odd. 3 separately colored lines above the table would look odd. So we need to figure out what are we going to do here. We've been thinking of possibly reusing the pattern from the status report page, this one, with these big icons that Christina designed originally. The possible problem with that is when you try to tuck in these big summaries into these tables, then you would have 2 of these summaries for your custom modules and for your contributed modules and themes. I don't know if that's good or not good. So we need to discuss that and decide that. I don't know if we are listing a list of questions somewhere where I should stop. Either way is fine. So, but
we should definitely make a list.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting most of the things already.
Yeah, I can stop now and we can discuss what you've seen already.
Okay. There's some comments in the sidebar. So one was, as the queue is finishing modules, it would be neat if the row it just finished that now is updated with information highlighted in yellow. Because we do have other places to kind of draw your attention to oh, something happened in that table down there, especially with it not jumping, which is good. We don't like jumping. There's no reason for you to necessarily notice that Chaos Tools, for example, just got data, which it didn't have before.
Yeah, you want it to just constantly yellow or fade up to yellow and fade down.
Ideally, it would be yellow, and then it would fade out. Or yeah, I think.
Shouldn't it be kind of like when you drag and drop something? Although in this case, you're not doing it, I guess.
Yeah, that same styling. And I think just highlight it for a second and then fade out after 2 seconds. I don't know if we do the fade out pattern anymore, so maybe ignore me on that. But anyway, it was really hard to see that the table was updating.
Yeah.
The operation's not showing up either. I mean, if the operations showed up, that might alone do the visual cue, but didn't for some reason. I forget what you said about that.
Yeah, they will, and they will not necessarily show because we'll discuss that later.
Okay.
I think we'll have default operations on items that are not yet scanned.
Yeah. Okay.
Could I just say something about the yellow? If somebody's computer is faster than Gabor's is, then I guess you have to decide how many yellows you want.
Yeah, true. Okay.
So having them fade out after 5 seconds or something might be okay. Then you won't have too many at a time.
Christina, do you have thoughts on that?
Yes, I think that's not a problem if you end up with a super cool gradient of yellows. I mean, it's it's just that it's doing things. Yeah, I guess we should kind of keep the animation fast enough. I mean, like it's not 5 seconds or something like that. Something much more faster. And a part of that, I think that's fine. I mean, in the moment you have several of them moving with the color changing, I think that's fine if several of them are at the same time there. Don't know what do you think, but I don't think there's any problem there. With this.
Okay.
Something else that I'm seeing is that you're using color for for example, for C-tools, you're using yellow instead of red.
So these are, I believe, the official colors of warning messages when there's errors. I think it's the same color as
should be red.
This one.
Oh, it looks like yellow.
Let's see. This is. Where's my color? So this is 165.27.0. And this is, it may not be the same. Let's see. Yeah, it's not the same. You're right. Definitely not the same. Good catch. It's brown. Yeah, this looks brown. I don't know why it's brown. I don't know. But we should use the.
Yeah, because it's a color for the yellow for the warning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Makes sense.
Anyway, I'm not 100% sure about using color here for the title of the project. Maybe if it goes red, I would say that different, but it's.
Keep it like this.
What about using a red background? And if you switch back to the status report, it did have a background color.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I prefer that option, but I'm not sure if we would end up with a super red screen.
Like it would be striped in all kinds of different colors based on what you have. I don't know. Maybe. I guess, yeah.
I guess I have to see that. I'm not really sure. Anyway, I think I prefer I'm not sure. So what it doesn't make much sense for me is having the title of the module in red. Only the title in red or in green or whatever. I mean, I would expect a message to become red because it's explaining me something. But having the title of the module itself, I'm not sure if it has enough information just saying, hey, it's not working. Anyway.
There is also the icon next to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's enough for me, at least. I wouldn't need the title of the module
There you go.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, if you think about the fact that some of them are going to be red and some of them are going to be green. I mean, if you make the one up above that says upgrade status, that one could have a kind of a greenish background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I don't know. And then it's a little easier to scan.
Yeah, I agree.
It's kind of like the issue page that we're all used to.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is for developers, so they might be used to the issue page.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you do that, then it's very clear which ones have run and which ones haven't, because the ones that haven't will be
I
white,
agree.
and the ones that have will be some other color than white.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
I
and then what the fade you could do is fading into the, well, you wouldn't even need to fade then because the color
No.
would be changing.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Not right.
Great.
Right. Done. Next
I
one.
also wanted to talk about the overview information. So we definitely lost that.
Yeah.
You have to read
That's
like
right.
small italicized black text. to
Yeah,
understand.
this is like, yeah.
So I do think some sort of overview here would be helpful. That's easier to see at a glance, like shit's fucked up. Because like right now you have 3 contributed modules, which is super cute. But like I've worked on sites with like 80 contributed modules, and it's not going to be easy
Exactly.
to have a table with that big and surmise from that you have 27 problems.
Mhm.
Could you do something about like have some show hide buttons that would hide the ones that are fine or something?
Yeah, once the report is run, I think it would not have the problem of rows appearing and disappearing, but as when it's still running, it has the same problem of.
Well, I mean, just hide the ones that have been scanned but say no known errors.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I see what you're saying, but they would be there and then they would go away, so that could be a problem.
Yeah, as when they like, yeah,
Okay, forget I said that.
they turn from no known errors to known errors, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, one thing we could do is, let's say, do you have that screen handy that's like, yeah, the status report? Could you flip over to that tab for a second? Let's scroll up. So let's say we had, like at the top here, 1 error details, 2 more for a check. One thing you could do instead of details is you can have like view projects or something, and that can take you to a page that only had the ones with errors or only had the ones that were checked as known good.
Mm-hmm.
One idea is I could.
Yeah, I was definitely going in that route. My head was like tabs. I mean, like you do tabs that are like errors, like the statuses in different tabs, because then someone could print them out. It's not that big of a deal, but
the problem is though that's going to have the appearing disappearing thing going on, right?
Yeah.
once it's done, that's the kind of once it's all completed, you could add local tasks to the page.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not
this is
entirely
pretty-
following you. So so you're saying about placing them on different pages or on different tabs instead of adding what Gabor suggested about having these 2 or 3 columns or blocks on the top of each one?
Well, I guess it's the filtering. What someone's only going to be interested in seeing the errors. They don't care. Like, I mean, they're not going to. What's green and good doesn't matter to them. They need to look at the errors, and in many cases, I'll throw out they might want to like cut and paste that. I know I would for a client cut and paste that into a report and say, here's our problems.
And why don't we use not only the 3 items on the top, but also the way of sorting things from the status page, which is having the errors on the top and all the rest on the bottom collapsed?
Yeah, that would work.
So what we haven't yet implemented is the export full report page, which doesn't do anything yet. But that was on the design, so we put it in. But we need to decide. We need to define what's on that page because we didn't decide that. So that's a page that could have reports like that. It's like, or order them by number of errors, or we can do all kinds of crazy things on that page that we export. We were assuming that's going to be like a HTML page that you could print or save in a Word document or whatever you want, and then or PDF, and then do whatever you mean with that.
Yeah, something
outside
rich.
of this. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, yeah, something that's like rich text, because there's going to be links you want to click to get to the fixed problem.
Yeah.
And it would be not the 7 theme for printing. It'd be like a custom rendered page, like simple markup, or
Yeah, it would be simple markup. Yeah, that's the idea.
okay, yeah, 7 doesn't print great, which is not, a dedicated template would be awesome because I mean.
Yeah. Any other comments? We have other things to talk. I have other topics to raise, but if others have topics, let's talk about them.
No.
I feel like we are not yet. Maybe we don't need to do this right now, but I feel like we still have an open question over how exactly best to. I feel like we reached a good consensus on how to update the table rows as they scan in. But we don't have good consensus on how to show the summary information at the top.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't know if we want to continue drilling on that, or if you want to continue with your demo, we'll just pin it as like a thing to discuss if there's time at the end.
Let me just explain what I had in mind when you were showing this, because Gabriel, you mentioned to have like the 3 rows with how many, like from the status page, the 3 rows. Sorry, the 3 blocks there with errors checked and so on.
Yeah.
So if we use that, if we were going to use it, I will then place that inside the table. So I will place them over it.
Yeah, so that's a thing that I was thinking of as well. But what we are trying to focus people on is their contributed modules, or their custom modules, sorry. I think that's what they can act on the most about. So if we now show them they have 78 errors and they don't actually have any. So what I have upgrade status as a custom module here because I did not download it as a project from Drupal.org, but I have it in local for development. That's why it shows up like that. So I don't know if like adding up all the numbers means the same thing than specifically talking about custom module numbers that actually do something with that. So that was the thinking behind that, having summaries for both.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So I was thinking that you were saying for each of them having this inside each of the tables, and I was thinking actually having for each of them this summary, but outside the table, because mainly it will be super packed inside.
Yeah, no,
so then.
Like replace the italic text with one of these. I mean, this bar.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll have to see that. My concern right now is just that it might look a little bit packed. But
yeah,
that's all.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I haven't. I mean, I was like, yeah, let's look at implementing this. And then I was, let's discuss in the UX meeting. Because what we designed was this summary, which was very visual, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at this, it's nicely, neatly visualized. And you obviously care about your problem modules, and the other 2 you're probably never going to open. But the design also called for running the report here and then showing some results, because the report takes a very long time because we have 100 contributed modules. And we wanted to show you something while this is going on, because it's going to go on forever. And so that's why we realized that we can do the grouping. So now we need to figure out what we can do instead for a visual summary.
Yeah. Yeah, probably doesn't need to be a toggle or a drop down here. I mean, why would you want to collapse the custom modules or the contribute? Well, you maybe want to collapse the custom modules, and you want to only see the contribute ones. Because I was thinking maybe you just add the title there instead of wrapping it inside a accordion.
We can get rid of the accordion. Yeah, we don't need them to be an accordion. That was, I mean, that was on the design, but I'm not at all married to it being an accordion. It was not even like an openable, closable thing, but the openable one was the default HTML5 thing that Drupal provided, which is easy to do.
It's a pretty nice way to group things.
Yeah, actually, if it's not an accordion, it maybe makes more sense. Actually, we could add those 3 rows there, but actually that they don't leave the paddings on left and right on top. So it's like a full width row divided on 3. I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself. So it doesn't have the padding around. It doesn't seem like a component just placed here inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Any other comments on this one?
Not for me.
That's probably quite a lot. We're taking notes in Slack, by the way.
Right. Yeah, let's save whatever is in the Google Hangout chat because that's going away. It's not recorded.
Yeah, I think I moved everything over there.
All right. So yeah, so then once you have report data, and this ideally the operations will show up as the scanning goes, then you can view your errors, which is a pop-up like this. And it tells you your file names and your line numbers and your errors. And the errors, the way we get the errors is this text. And Drupal could actually tell you a lot more about that error. I mean, Drupal has the deprecation message that tells you what to use instead and the link to the change notice. Unfortunately, that's not yet provided to us from this tool. And Matt Clayman has been working on patching PHP 10. It's been a huge patch to get PHP 10 to actually get us the deprecation message. And that requires the upstream project to approve that patch. So we can't do that yet. So what we discussed last time instead is to try to match whatever known things we find here, whatever things that we can link to and point people to there. We implemented this for functions for now, but we could technically implement it for other things. So this is like call to deprecated function entity get display is going to open you API search for entity get display. I got the link from Jennifer that searches you the function, and if it finds only one result, then it gets you the actual result. It's fancy. If it finds multiple results, then it gets you multiple results. And then this is where it tells you what to do instead. So this is the best we could do so far.
Real quick interjection. Why 8.6 and not 8.7?
This is an 8.6 site that I'm running.
That's a great reason.
So we made it aware of the site that you're running. This is an 8.6.13 site. So if it runs an 8.7, then it's going to link you to 8.7. So the only problem with this is this is it was very easy to implement. It's like 4 lines of regex on the message. The only problem with it is that we don't know if the deprecated function is a core function or a contrib function. Oh. So we may be linking to api.drupal.org, and it may be telling you it's not found if it's like commerce API, whatever. And that's why I haven't gone on to implement it for the rest of the things. We need to agree on this somehow. I looked at ways in PHP to get data about functions, whatever it's called. Let me see. Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but it's reflection. Yes, so reflection that you can ask about a function or a method or whatever, and ask where it's implemented, and then you can look at the file path where it's implemented and deduce if it's a core thing or not a core thing. But then I realized that there's a bunch of methods and function names that are in include files that are not currently included, and therefore we can't do reflection on them. So that's not going to work either. So we either are starting to link to everything and then either works or it doesn't, or we don't link, wait for the magic patch from Matt Clayman to land in PHP stand.
So what all does PHP stand give you? Because it must know where entity get display and UI test base and all those things are.
Yeah, it knows.
It knows, but it doesn't tell you?
It also knows that it's deprecated. It doesn't tell you the content of the annotation, the deprecated
Okay, but if
annotation.
it tells you the file name, then you can tell from that whether it's in core or contrib at least.
No, it tells you the file name it's been used in, with the contrib module in this case. But we don't know if the thing you are using is a contrib or a core thing.
Okay, because it must know that. I mean, that's how it figured out that the thing was deprecated by reading some files.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
But it just doesn't give you that information.
It doesn't. So we can also try to look if like PHP stand we can like somehow get metadata about methods and functions. I don't know. That's a possibility. Yeah.
Yeah, because if we could know that entity get display was declared on line 76 of blahblah.inc or whatever, then we can figure it out from there.
Yeah, I know.
And that seems like a much smaller patch, maybe, to PHP stand than. I'm shocked that it's that big of a patch, because isn't it just @deprecated and then barf out exactly what it says there? Like, that seems like that's one extra JSON. Really, but yeah, that's just odd to me. But wow, way to, yeah. It seems so easy when we were mocking it up. It turns out it's not so easy.
Yeah, because so that's what we realized when we've been implementing this is like, how do you know?
So we do kind of Neil Drum and I do have plans to eventually put all of contrib on api.drupal.org, but this has been a plan for how many years now? We just haven't done it. So that might solve some of that problem, because then if you did a search, you would get, if you searched for UI test base, you might get the one in core and then another one that's in the commerce module or something like that.
Yep.
And you could very easily figure out which one you wanted, because it is telling you at least the namespace of the class.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I don't know when we'll get around to that. There are a few blockers that we need to fix first.
And can you do really, really basic error handling? Like, I tried to search for commerce and api.drupal.org gave me a 404. So now I'm going to point them at api.drupalcontrib.org instead. Does that site still exist? Like, there was a...
You're not going to get a 404, though. You're just going to get a search result that says there's nothing there.
Okay.
This is the extent of the patch that needs to be added on PHP stand for it to support.
Yeah, that's a lot more than I was expecting.
Just for the sake of yeah. So
I just tested it. You just get a page that says no search results found.
Okay, but you could use really shitty screen scraping to figure that out, like as a workaround. Just because the reason I'm pushing so hard on this is because if you don't get a link to something here, you are really SOL. Like, because if this tool doesn't know where, C tools yaka yaka is, I mean, I don't know. Like in my dream world, someone can read this report and get a sense of how much work is left without hiring a developer to look at all this shit in PHP Storm.
Yeah, I know.
And it's really hard because right now you can click on entity get display and you can at least get a sense if that's a find and replace kind of problem or if
it's a bigger problem. Yeah,
all of this shit,
I just want to also point out that you are currently searching just in the Drupal core project with the URL that you're using. And even if we do put all of contrib on there, you're going to have to modify the search URL to get to the right project, or else we'll probably, once we do that, we'll have a global search thing that will let you search across projects. But at least that's the plan. I mean, it's all pie in the sky at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, there's also some things.
It's not going to be there this week.
There's also some errors that may be errors in how we instantiate PHP stem, like this one. That the autoloading did not find the ctools wizard test. That's probably duplicating this class because it's a different path. So there's like some issues like that came up that we may need to fix. And there's also when you have a trait, then your trait will be scanned in the context of all the classes that uses the trait. And then you will get the errors for all the contexts of the class of the trait being used, because they may or may not have different problems based on where they are used, because a trait is like mixed into a class. So one thing we tried to do is to highlight the file name here because it may be in a sea of other text. And also to make this wrappable, so if the page is wrapped like this, then it wraps up, so you can still read it on smaller screens.
Big plus one to that. I did not like the ... from the mocks, because
Yeah,
you really need to know where exactly that thing is.
yeah. So this is like wraps as much as possible. Like the file name can't wrap anymore. That's why it's like this now. So that's the view results, and we can implement all the links to the rest of the things, because we can link to the methods of classes, I guess. Figuring out the right URL paths on api.drupal.org, but the functions already work. Yeah, so that's how you get the results, and then you would have an export link for all the things that have results on them that we don't currently have. And that would export the results for only this one. And that would, our simple plan is to basically put this table on the raw HTML page and then print that out. So if you open this in a new window, it's basically like this. It's in the 7th theme. And the export one would be not in the 7th theme, but basically the same results. If there's better ideas for export, they're also welcome. And then finally, the rescan option is here, which currently is not that user-friendly, because what happens is you rescan and it tells you that it's added to the project queue. It's not very nicely themed.
That is a very, very big dialogue with no way to, like, there's no OK button or anything.
Yeah. So it put it into the queue, but you don't really have a way to run the queue here other than restarting the full scan. So if you really want to run the queue other than restarting the full scan, you would need to like go and like run cron or something, because it also runs on cron. Where do I run cron? Not here.
Not a cron run when that button is pressed?
I mean, they would drop all your results based on our previous discussions of like half-known results.
It is possible to. There are some contrib modules that'll run the queues. Yeah,
there's a QUI module that could run queues in various ways, but Core by default would run your queues on cron. So we use that here as well. So if you navigate away from this page without completing the progress bar, then your scanning will continue on cron, which by default runs every 3 hours, I think. So it will take a very long time for it to complete. But now that, for some reason the progress bar appeared again. I don't know why. But basically that ran again. There's no result difference to see, but it ran again. I think so to return back to the original idea of operations buttons are only going to show up when you have results. I think it would make a ton of sense to have in this default state operations buttons for running the single scan on a project, because the only way to get the rescan button is to scan everything, and there's no way to just run a single scan. And I think that would be nice to not need to run a whole scan before you get to be able to rescan something. So if you're only interested in one project, then you can do a single scan and then rescan and then single scan, rescan, whatever. And then I think if you hit the button to rescan something and it's still running, then because it just adds it at the end of the queue, it will execute naturally. Other than the operations buttons not showing up, that should already work. And when you hit the rescan button, then it should launch the queue runner here again, which we are not currently doing, but that's to do.
Can I ask you a question? I just want to be sure that I understood what you were just saying then, Gabor.
Yeah.
So let's say that you have not yet run the full scan.
Mm-hmm.
And you were saying that you wanted to be able to scan individual projects.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that it do an initial list of the projects that are available and allow you to pick and choose, like cherry pick the scan?
Yeah, that's already
before you do a full scan?
That's already happening, yeah. So if we stop this from happening, let's see if that cleared it properly. Yeah, so this is already happening. So this is the default state screen. I don't know if this, this is another question, if the triangle with the exclamation mark is a good icon for something that does not have an error, because we don't know. If it does, it's probably not the right icon, but that's again what was designed, so that's what we used.
Do you need an icon at all?
You may not need an icon, yeah. And neither a color.
To me, a yellow icon like that is, oh, you need to look at this one, but...
Yeah, pay attention, yeah.
I actually think that is what it needs to be, right? If it's not yet scanned, that is kind of its state. I don't think it's bad.
Is there a way to show which ones are actually in the queue versus haven't ever been queued up?
That would be what? In the queue?
Well, because that's a really good question. I had a similar thought, Jennifer. I agree with you that it would be nice to see what's coming next in terms of scan. Because if you went through multiple projects, then that would be, maybe you clicked the button, scan this, but then you went away and you're like, oh, is that being scanned? Okay, I'm going to click the button again. Does it scan it like another time? And maybe you're like needlessly filling your queue, or if you could look at the queue, that might be useful to avoid, I don't know, running the same scan multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, as a practical matter, I haven't looked at the queue API for Drupal 8, but in Drupal 7, the queues, you had to like load a blob out of the database and look at it to see what was actually being queued up, because the queue database tables and stuff were just kind of lame from a trying to figure out what's in their perspective. I'll just say that, but you either that or keep track of it somewhere else, like, you know, that you have queued something, and then when you clear the queue, clear all those things that you're keeping track of, which is kind of annoying, but that's what the API module does. We have 3 queues there, and you have to kind of just keep track of things as you go.
So actually what I thought when I saw that, is that they had some kind of error. I mean, and I just realized now that you're talking about that their status is that they're not scanned yet. So my assumption was completely different. So yeah, I don't think it's the appropriate way of communicating that this is pending, or this is on hold, or this is waiting for something.
Yeah, and there's got to be a difference between it's in the scan queue versus you haven't even started a scan. Because the status they're saying to be scanned, that doesn't tell me whether, you know, it would be scanned.
Yeah, once we introduce the single scan thing, yeah.
You would need to change the status basically here on this page from to be scanned to in the queue.
Unscanned or something like that.
Or scan pending versus not scheduled or something like that.
Yes, and I wouldn't use the warning icon here. Maybe I would, I don't know, try to use an icon like it's I don't know, something like it's like something like it's marking the time or something like that. And also would maybe mark this as gray or something like that. I'm not really sure about that, but I don't know. This seems like there's an error here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. We can also just not add the icon for now until we figure out if there's a better one. We are using all the core, not all. We are using all the icons we are using are from core. So we are trying to not make up our own visual things here.
Then let's not use any icon here since there's nothing to communicate. Yeah. There's not any status to communicate, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else?
Is there any user testing that we want to consider planning for this? To confirm the theory that it's useful, what you're talking about?
That's kind of what we're doing here. Like we're showing it off in front of prospective users of this tool and getting their feedback.
Yeah, we need no, go ahead.
I was going to context. So I'm coming from a very developer perspective on this. It's a really useful tool for managers and technical leads to understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. But when you're in the weeds fixing the individual modules, running PHP stand command line is way faster and easier. And I'm not saying this is a bad use case. I'm just we don't want to forget that use case because I mean, that's definitely how I'm approaching my project. Like we're doing an upgrade and I just got the command line running, documented it to the developers and showed them how to do it on individual modules because that's a faster response time. And I'm not sure how, like, I'm kind of pointing that out to say we should note who the user is. And I think it's managers and tech leads and not overthink the report. They're going to run the report. I don't know if people are going to continually run it. Linking to the developer documentation to running this via command line, I don't think is a bad idea. It's because if you're in code fixing code, command lines, most developers would prefer just to run this command line. You get a text file that's actually easier to manipulate.
So could this module also provide a drush command to run it on the command line?
Is the PHP stand extensions being installed with this, right? This requires Composer.
That's what I'm saying. You've already got PHP stand, so if you install this module, give you some drush commands too.
So it can already be run with Composer as it is. So you don't. I mean, well.
Oh, okay. No. Well, then put that command in the README so that if you install this module, then if you want to do this at the command line, here's the command. It's one line to add to the README file.
Yeah.
I think we got to get feedback. Gabor, sorry to cut you off.
No, I take that back because that's some slightly different requirements for the Composer command line run to run this than what we are working with because we generate the configuration file for PHP stand at a specific place. Mm-hmm. And we need it to be specifically configured for us, etc. So you're not going to be able to run it as easily. But there's the Drupal check binary basically is much better for command line development because it does not modify any of your Composer requirements on your site. It's like an external binary. It's a phar file that you download and you can run, and it leaves your site untouched. And you can run all the deprecation testing with that. You can put it in your CI system, whatever you want. So that's very useful for that.
Yeah, I guess that's like we got to ask the question. I think the use case, like what are developers going to use it for? Because for some major teams, if they have CI integration, they're going to want this in the CI. Mm-hmm. They're going to run the report once and be like, okay, now I know the scope. Where's the documentation to get this into my CI?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not this tool. So we need to lead them to that tool as well. Yeah, that's a different tool. It's already done. Thanks, Matt Clayman.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty awesome. I mean, I ran the command line stuff and I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
I'm running it continuously and just checking it.
Yeah, we also have Drupal.org integration for PHP standard application testing that was broken a couple days ago, but I believe is now fixed. So there's like these 3 use cases that we are trying to cover with CI integration, command line interface stuff that you put it into your build systems and ensure that whatever code you write is included in this report. That's more like high level. So what the benefit of this over Drupal check is all the summaries and the visual overview and like seeing it all together. And if you run Drupal check, you don't have this summary. Like you need to like manually couple together your data about all your custom modules and contributed modules, etc. So I think the main benefit is the overview, the bird's eye view of what's going on your site, which is not provided by any of the other tools, and by far not this visual. And then the Drupal.org integration is what's going to be useful for project maintainers on Drupal.org. And we want to use this UI to educate people about how to work with module maintainers. So that's a thing as well that I don't know if we are linking to the right page yet, but that was the idea. No, this is not the right page. So I will update this to link to the right page. Well, not this link, but we'll have a link to the right page about working with module maintainers to update their stuff. There's a docs page for that. Any other comments? Did we use up all the time in this meeting?
Just about 2 minutes left.
Yeah, although we started late, so we should, if people are available for a few minutes, we should jump over to Jennifer's.
I'm sorry I missed the beginning. I'll watch the recording.
It's recorded.
You want me to? I'll just put a link in the chat here if you want to look at this issue. Are we done with the other stuff?
Yep.
Okay. So if you want to take a look at that issue, this is an issue about. Oops, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Skip that one. It's this one.
That's a good one now.
It's another issue, but it's not a usability. Well, it ends up being kind of a usable internationalization issue. But this issue is about what happens when you are adding a reference field to a content type, and if you've done something like, as is often the case, if you're reusing fields, if you've got a bunch of different content types and you're reusing fields, you might have different labels on different content types. And a common use case for that is the title field that's built in. So you can put a label, like if you have a vendor content type, you might call the title field vendor name. And if you have a recipe content type, you might call it recipe name. And if you look at that first screenshot where Gabor just scrolled to, if you're adding a reference field, you have your choice of sorting, and you scroll down and it tells you can sort by recipe name, which is great if you're having a reference field for recipes, but it doesn't make any sense if you have a reference field for vendors. And it just sort of picks one arbitrary label, as it currently in core, it just picks one arbitrary label to put into this select list for the sort field. I'm not making any sense. I didn't rehearse this, obviously. So we discussed this a while back in a usability meeting, and then went back and forth with a few people. But basically, when we looked through this, we thought of another use case, which is that sometimes people have the same field label, but multiple underlying field names, the machine name. And so the machine name is the only way to be unambiguous. But then sometimes you've got a machine name and you've made the site 5 years ago and the labels have evolved so they make sense to the content editors, but the machine name doesn't make any sense at all. So you kind of want to have both the label, or at least one label, and the machine name, and also to know that it's got multiple labels. So yeah, if you scroll down, I've got some options in this issue as to possibly how you could format this list so that it makes sense with the the idea that you want to have the label first, so it looks kind of like what it used to, but you want to have some indication, like with this vertical bar here, that there are multiple labels for this field. You want to have the machine name in there, and we decided it needed to go in square brackets, because if you look up a few lines above that highlighting, like for the image field, the image has a title and an alt and a target ID and a bunch of different information that you could search by, and those are put in parentheses on the image field. So just to avoid confusion, I put the field machine name in square brackets. So this is, I think, the best option, but nobody's been willing to kind of give it a little RTBC love. So I don't know how else to, yeah. So I just put down some ideas of what else you could do. One formatting option number 2 is use parentheses for the fields, and then you've got 2 things with parentheses, which is kind of annoying. Somebody had suggested separating the title, the labels, and the machine names with colons, but then you end up with this kind of, I don't know. I don't like ... very much, so I didn't like F3, but you could do it. Another possibility was to put the machine name first, but we decided that was kind of disruptive because the current list has the label first. And then the other thing was the old list was never sorted, so we thought we should at least sort it. If anybody has any other ideas, I mean, it's pretty easy to make a patch because you have all the information in the code that builds this select list. So it's pretty easy to make the list be whatever we want it to be, but couldn't really think of any other, nobody's come up with any other options than these 4, really, that satisfy everything of having the label, having the machine name, and being kind of hopefully intuitive. I don't know. It's kind of messy, but it's just kind of a messy process. That's all I have.
It is messy.
Well, if you scroll up in the issue summary a bit, there's a screenshot also of what Views does. Because Views has the same problem. Oops, it's right in there. I don't know if you can see that, but Views has, it's not a select list, it's a multi-checkbox table. So it puts the label on the left and then the field type, and then it says appears in and also known as, so it gives you all the different labels, but it's got a lot more space. It's not just a simple select list, and it can go onto multiple lines. Sometimes those things are like 5 lines long if you've got a bunch of different aliases for the same, a bunch of different labels for the same field. So anyway, and it never shows you the machine name either in Views. So that's another issue.
Yeah, that's like looking at my installation of Views, and I hacked Views to show the machine name because I could use it. As soon as you have 200 fields with similarities, like for example, every content type I have has a type field, which is like a subtype. If you don't know the field name, you have no context for what type it is.
Well, it does tell you which content types it's in, but it's still kind of annoying.
We can't scan as quickly because it only searches the title field.
Right.
So yeah, I'm very familiar with this, and I agree with showing the machine name. I mean, I've seen past pushback where no one knows what a machine name is, but at this point,
it's on every field UI screen. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
This is a field UI screen for adding a new field that's a reference field, and it's got to be referring to some other data on another content type. So
yeah, it seems totally justified then.
Yeah,
it's like it's non-technical users just don't know what a machine name is, but in this case, they know.
Yeah. But the other thing is, a question I have is, do we actually need the label? Because if you look at this, where it says similar UIs in core in the issue summary, under B, field UI, if you're adding an existing field to a new content type, all you get is the machine name and the type, like it's a text field or it's a link field. So you're not even getting the labels there in that UI. And that's the same module. So it doesn't even show you the labels at all. So, I mean, that would be another possibility. It would be to just go field type name : machine name, just like in the add existing field. But I don't think anybody really wants that to happen. So. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. The machine name is a big improvement. I think the pipe that is confusing, but
yeah, the bracket that you have on screen now the bracketed approach seems like the soundest way to do it.
Yeah, it was kind of the only one that didn't look totally weird and didn't try to use parentheses for two different things, which I think is confusing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if somebody wants to take a look at that patch and mark it RTBC or take off the needs usability review tag or something, that would probably be possible to move this forward. This is something that came up in the user guide, and about every 3 to 6 months, somebody files another issue in the user guide that our text is wrong because of this dialogue. So I would like to get it fixed in core and then fix the user guide so it matches what's in core and then never have to look at it again. So anyway.
Okay, I'll do that. Why don't we?
Great.
What's the best practice here? Should we wait till the recording gets the recording's going to get posted shortly, right?
Yeah.
And I'll link to the recording and say we discussed this and we decided to go with the bracket syntax. All right.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, as soon as the recording's posted tonight or tomorrow, I'll do it. I
Okay.
added it to my
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
My to-do list. Okay.
Perfect. Do we have time to look at your other issue, Jennifer, or
what, the POTX one? I don't think that's necessarily a usability one.
Not that one, no. But I think you've had two. No.
No, the other one got fixed.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah. The other one's gone.
Nice.
Thanks, though.
Cool.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I think you took care of the other one.
Yeah, I did. That was very nice. Yeah. It was easy, simple, and nice. Okay. Well, thanks everyone, then, and see you not next week. Well, maybe hopefully some of you next week in person, and then the week after we'll be back virtually on the UX meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. See y'all next week.